2005. What was it that gave you the impetus to get this started among all your other life responsibilities?
Thank you. Uh, you know, Perceptions Unlimited was born, I would say, the idea of it was born in the 90s when I and several people that I worked with in residential life at a small college in Vermont were subject to basically a hate crime. And it was, people giving us an application for African Americans and Mexicans. It was an employment application, and the way it was delivered to us, which was in our office mailboxes. So we were in residence life, so many of us were paraprofessionals and professional staff. We When we received that, it seemed like it was from an insider, like someone who had keys to the office. I'll spare you all of the details. An instant reaction, of course, I was outraged. I was upset. I was sad and disappointed. However, the next thing that happened was my desire to educate was what came out of me. I wanted to rally the troops to ensure that all of our residential students, all of the campus community understood what happened and what the impact was, right? Because it was like somebody coming into my house and violating me. And so I would say the idea for Perceptions Unlimited was born then because I realized that those things that I'm passionate about and even angry about that exist in this world, I respond as an educator. And to build the business, to be honest, that was more about having the ability to reach more people outside of one institution.
And you have focused on educational institutions, nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
Was that a natural progression for you based on that unfortunate instance?
Yes. So I do believe that people, well, I will speak for myself. I believe that I am best of use to an organization personally, and people who I bring onto my team are more effective when we have experience in the industry. So Perceptions Unlimited has served across different industries. We've had some corporate clients, we've had small business. I've even have had a veterinary hospital. Excuse me. But our focus is on helping organizations become more people-oriented, people-centered. And, so many people will say, we center our people. For educational institutions, we educate all of our people. We care about all students, et cetera. But or we want to develop the whole person. And even in healthcare, where we're working now, certain medical folks will say that they want to serve the whole patient, right? But in our training, particularly where I'm passionate in healthcare and in education, a lot of the people who have trained us have missed the mark. Okay, there is a critical elements that have been left out of our education to better prepare us to serve all students, to serve all people of marginalized populations, whether they're clients, students, or colleagues. And so my background in education and working with nonprofits makes me uniquely prepared to serve those populations because I've done the work in youth development. I've done the work as a higher ed administrator for 35 years. I've done the work. The administration is about 20 years. And then I've been teaching pre-service and in-service educators. So many of them are teachers or preparing to teach, but others are preparing for roles in education other than being a teacher, like an applied behavioral analyst, for example. So in working directly with those people, I've developed many of the products that come through Perceptions Unlimited.
How would you describe what your core mission is? And you spoke to a lot of that a moment ago. Mm-hmm. But at its core, what are you trying to achieve?
We are trying to help organizations leverage their diversity, right? The diversity of race, class, sexual orientation, all of the different identities and intersections of identities, help educational organizations or those with an educational component, help them leverage the diversity, change the narrative around what's valued so that all people, all identities, what people bring to the table, their funds of knowledge that they bring to the organization matter.
I think what is unique is how you go about doing that. Not so much a case of hitting people over the head and saying you need to be more diverse, but teaching them, showing them, guiding them. Am I on the right track with that?
Yes, you are. So we focus on helping organizations that are interested in transforming their culture. I would say I was raised in the academy, right? So I had, from my pre-K to 12 experience, I actually had a lot of privileges and then actually graduated from high school at age 16. So I've been in higher education since then. So not only went to college, but worked in them. And what I found, actually, from my experience, I think I got lucky in higher education because I had a number of people in the institution. I had my family, all of those influences, even, a supportive religious community and other community organizations that help support me in thriving in those spaces. And at the same time, I noticed that privilege was not offered to everyone from my neighborhood. And then as I developed as a sociologist and as a professional educator, I better understood why that was happening.
How do you go about connecting with clients? Do they reach out to you, or is there an intermediary, or just how does that process work?
For the most part, they reach out to us. We are getting better at getting my thought leadership out there, the thought leadership of other people who speak to diversity, equity, and inclusion topics. We are working toward that, but so far they have been finding us. Not usually through an intermediary, except for the fact that a lot of our work comes from referrals. The average client that works with Perceptions Unlimited comes back to us 4 times. And often they are a source of referral to other new clients.
That's impressive. Do clients or prospective clients, are they sometimes reluctant to reach out to you, or perhaps not realize that they may have an issue that they should address?
Well, I'm sure there are many organizations out there that don't realize that they have an issue to address and they would not reach out to me. What I would find, or to our organization. So what I find is, particularly, I'll just use higher education and pre-K to 12 education. A number of organizations think that they have the experts at the institution already, and they might. They might have a few. Yes. They may have researchers. They may have professional educators. But in higher education, for example, you're not actually taught how to teach adults. So oftentimes when you are teaching in that space and you're doing well, you're among the few that receive that either you do it instinctively or you had some other training. So like a great example is in education departments. Oftentimes, teacher educators have been teachers, and they have been taught at least some presentation skills, right? Learning styles, and they've been taught to teach to different learning styles. But a lot of times, we haven't been taught to teach to adult learning styles as well. Or people don't necessarily have facilitation skills, right? So as a teacher, you have power over people in the educational space. As a facilitator, you don't. And if you don't have the humility to do that, it is hard to facilitate learning as opposed to really just speaking to the cognitive part of people's understanding, right? So you're teaching to the head and not the heart. We are uniquely positioned to focus in on community building as well. So oftentimes, even people who come to us, they are pleasantly surprised that we focus on community building in the training space. Right. So, yes, while we can speak on different topics and just fill you with information, we prefer to work with you if, yes, you want information, but you also want your team to be able to support each other more effectively, for your team to relate better to their constituents. So there's, I can't really answer for people who don't come to us or who don't seek this type of training. But what I would say is that many, at least in higher ed, and I would dare say in some pre-K to 12 spaces where they have people on staff to develop their trainings, they don't seek outside consultants. And here's one of the concerns I do have about that, not just because we have a company out here, that's how we thrive, that's how we stay operational. It's because I've been an insider. So I have headed up multicultural affairs units before organizations started creating chief diversity officer positions. And so I've been on the inside, and I know that a number of people take jobs that have too many responsibilities in them. And if they are responsible for strategic planning and more, right? If they're responsible for that, should their time be spent training people? That's one concern. And a lot of people are hired in jobs where that is a part of their job description and they actually don't know how to train effectively. And another concern is that organizations will, people within the organization, they know you, right? And so oftentimes familiarity breeds contempt. People on or indifference, but people won't listen to someone necessarily who's on the inside. So even as a trainer myself, when I was working full time as an administrator, and training was a part of the role that I took on, even in those situations, I was most effective to train students than my peers.